Thank you for the opportunity to speak again about 5G Tango. I will take advantage of Victor's previous presentation and be faster, a little bit faster. And let's see if I reach the sixth thing I want to talk about. So you know this, I'm also from Victor team in the 5G Tango, and we work on top of the Sonata. The links for the sites are there. All our software is open source, so you can go there and grab what you like. So I've imagined this like a countdown. So let's start with the, let's say, it's not the least important factor in this zero-touch way or process, but it's the first one I thought that we should address. Technologies, processes, and tools. This is a really complex part, as several speakers have already mentioned today. We've got lots of possible processes that we have to take care, define, or improve along the life of our projects, imagining a scenario with zero touch. If you look at this table, it's quite, let's say, challenging, to say the least, or even frightening. But this table, if you look, I didn't put the reference because it's quite easy to reach from the Google. The colors represent the different processes I've presented you before, and the different squares, let's say, are the different tools you have on that kind of process. So it's a challenge to choose the right tool to integrate them. Okay. As a 5G Tango member, we have adopted in each one of those processes some of the tools that I mentioned there. As you can see, for instance, Jenkins appears here as in more than one categories, let's say. For instance, database management, we don't have so much data on the service platform, so we are skipping it. Release management, we're doing it not with a full tool, let's say, but we are doing it with the help of GitHub and some manual stuff. Well, this is the general idea that you may have to, let's say, go through. Okay, this is just an example. This serves us, or at least until now, it has served us. It doesn't mean that the project will end with this set of tools. This is something that you have to keep adjusting to your team's needs and to your processes, let's say. Okay, in the Tango, we have adopted the DevOps approach. Actually, here apparently, we only see the forward path, let's say, but DevOps has other two paths that are very, very important, and people often neglect them. That's the feedback. I mean, after you deploy, you have to measure stuff, and you have to understand what changes happen in your platforms, in your services, products, etc., due to the last change that you made. Okay, that's the feedback loop. And there's a third one, which is how much did you learn from these two paths, the forward one and the backward one. Okay, this is crucial. It's not shown explicitly here. It's not usually addressed, but DevOps really has these three paths: forward, backward, and the learning curve, let's say. Okay, the learning path. Sorry. So in 5G Tango, we have adopted, as I said, a DevOps flow. You have the developers here. You have two big sets of GitHub repositories. Here, on the left-hand side, you have the, let's say, the support repositories we call the Tango DevOps. And on the right side, it's more the developer stuff, okay? Every change in every repository fires a Jenkins job. Jenkins then fires slaves processes that use Ansible to update the environments we have, and we have those four. It's not easy to manage them. For that, we are using containers and stuff like that. Any details you can ask me afterwards. And the important thing is that in the end, the developer can use the platform and test it manually to see if everything is okay. I'll get back to automation and tests before, in a minute, okay? So we are using a kind of Scrum. Scrum is really this, you know. It came really from this rugby, I don't know, formation. I think it's the right term. So it's not anything. It's a team effort to get the ball on one side, okay? So, and this is really what we need to do in a software development. Lots of stuff, lots of people, lots of operators, carriers, whatever you call them, as long as they do software, are using Scrum in their own way. It's not wrong. That's not wrong. That's the reasonable way. If you bring in a theoretical, let's say a fundamentalist, if I may say so, maybe you're losing other things. You have to adapt to the maturity of your team, of your developing team. In this case, we are using a Scrum-like those all, because we are geographically distributed. We are not 100% members of this project. We have other projects as well, and so on and so forth. So these are principles that the fundamentalist Scrum, let's say, counselor or coach or whatever, would not accept. We just take or try to take the best out of the methodology. Okay. Kanban, Lean, we are not using it, but often, very often, people are joining these ideas that came from the Toyota factories right after the Second World War, when they were very poor in resources, human or not human. So they are focused Kanban, or I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, but Lean is focused mainly on avoiding waste. Okay. Waste in things that are manufactured and are not sold, waste in terms of bugs in software. So it's quite a focused approach to developing software, and often people prefer it to Scrum. Okay. But whatever the methodology that one wants to reach, zero touch, whatever it is, you should go there, grab the best to your needs, and adapt it. Okay. It of course implies developers training, tools selection, sometimes buying, adaptation, culture changes, and so on and so forth. But it's really something that it's hard to do, but it's doable. Okay. So in terms of just a quick, I'm not reading, of course, the slides. Focus on the speed of delivery, but also I'm not mentioning there, but also on the other two paths, as I've mentioned, the learning path, which is the one that joined both, and the feedback path, in which you understand that you're not deploying your things correctly, or you're deploying them correctly, but they are affecting the network or whatever in bad ways. So this is a feedback loop that is very, very important. If I might recommend in this fifth step, a book, I'm not interested especially interested in this book, but I think that this one is particularly keen on how, in this case, Google handles this. They don't call it DevOps, they call it site reliability engineering, which is, in my view, a much deeper approach, because they are basically focused on KPIs that they collect from every service they provide, and they work basically around the KPIs. Okay. So the fourth aspect you need to touch before going zero touch, product management. Product management is often confused with many things. Okay. And is often also not sufficiently empowered. Product managers are, well, sometimes they are the CEO or some vice president of the company or so. But in terms of helping designing products or services. By the way, product manager, you may read it as well as service manager, because quite often I see, but my shop doesn't do products, doesn't build products, it just provides services. Yes, but if you think somehow like this, in my opinion, you'll get better as well as a service manager if you want. A good product manager is something that is not in charge of the marketing of the product, is not in charge of the team, is not the product designer, is not the product engineer. The product manager is someone who knows the market, who knows the customer, and is focused on that, and is focused in building a bridge between what your shop does and what the market expects and what you can sell and things like that. This is crucial, and it is often overlooked. And even more crucial, it's the product manager's responsibility to break the product or service into meaningful little pieces. We've seen the ants versus the elephant a while ago in the morning. It's really that. You have to cut the service or the product into meaningful pieces, pieces that have value for the customers in themselves, in order to spread the development or the improvement of your products over time, okay? So in this case, my recommendation goes to this book, Inspired. Basically, also to empower, really empower product managers, and not just make them to do the reports and to collect the KPIs on the sales of the product. Okay. Failure is, it would give a talk by itself. I wrote encouraging failure, but really it's encouraging getting back on our legs after a failure, okay? It's not encouraging exactly failure. Okay, the third one, and I have to hurry. Infrastructure as code. Start dealing with your infrastructure not as pets, but as a cattle, okay? You can kill the machine now, get it back up next, multiply by 10, whatever. Infrastructure today, as the virtualization advances, is nothing like it was before, in which you had to buy the machine and take really care of it. Now we should have lots of codes that configures the machines, creates them, puts them down, and so on and so forth, okay? Another book is a recommendation, Infrastructure as Code, has lots of interesting advice and concrete examples. Allow team to ask for resources, but make them accountable, because as some speaker this morning said, yes, you don't see the resource there, so if there are licenses implied, you're paying a lot if everyone asks his pet or her pet machine to play with and doesn't use it accordingly, okay? Yeah, okay. So the second aspect of this, software development, I've touched a little bit here, the DevOps approach and stuff, but this is even more true 7 years after this sentence, okay? Software is really eating the world. Even the hardware, my colleague from CTTC before, who work on optical networks, there's a lot of software on top of them, okay? So if software is eating the world, there is a lot to do in terms of software. This is something that is quite dated. It's from an old book, but I like to bring this picture here, because look at coding. Coding in terms of an overall effort, and these are specific projects. These are projects for NASA and for the armed forces of the USA. So these are very specific projects. Not all projects have these tasks, okay? But look at the weight coding has in a project like this, 13.5%, okay? It's really low. So software development is not only software development, okay? Open source, it was mentioned here. Of course, you should use it. You should give back to the community. Be aware of the kinds of licenses people actually think that open source is equal to free source. It's not exactly like that. Please see the example, recent example of the React and Facebook, but there are many, many more examples. Look at the license agreement of the software you want to use before using it. Look at the 12 factors app. These are let's say the new darling of the IT guys. The network guys do not like this much. It's a pity that Diego, I don't think Diego is there already, but he hates this, especially the number 12, okay? So I'm glad he's not here because he would ask me for that. The 12 factors are basically some very basic do's and don'ts of developing applications in the way that you can easily put them in the cloud and stuff. Our apps are going to be, or are in this moment, being described. Let's say we have to create metadata on top of our applications. These are called descriptors. Etsy has a very deep work on this. We use these descriptors then to store this metadata in catalogs. Catalogs is going to be also one of the very good businesses of the future because of course, currently each one presents his own or her own catalog with little tweaks, but this will have to be taken care in the future. As I'm not going to waste time here, but basically we describe services. Services are composed by VNFs, and VNFs are composed of deployment units, and we join them together in the orchestration platforms. You can see some examples in the Sonata sites. One very basic, very initial, one service and two VNFs, and one more complex, a VCDN pilot. There are descriptors of these services and functions available, as I said before. So we are changing a lot in terms of deploying our applications or our software in general. The next trend, I would say, is serverless. This is something really different. We will have to adapt to, again, all the descriptors, because in the descriptions we focus very much in the deployment unit, and the serverless is a little bit different. Okay, so offer each one of your developers clean code. So the first one is automation, of course. These two curves are crucial. When a manager does not understand the difference between these two curves, forget zero touch, forget automation. The left one is a manual process, of course. With manual process, I do it once and I do it really quickly, so high speed, okay? But then comes a difference, a small difference, a small improvement needed, and then I start to lose the speed, and it's hell in the end. The other one is automation with scripts doing. Of course, in the beginning, I take too long, for my manager's view, I take too long to develop the scripts. So it's a big pressure, it's stress. But then speed starts increasing as you often have to install a new machine. If you have a script that installs the machine, you take some time doing it the first time, but then it's all the same, okay? So these two curves are really, really essential. One other aspect is I don't deliver products or services directly to my customers. It's often the talk that carriers do. Yes, but you can split it into continuous delivery, which is automate everything until that small part there, and then deploy it manually. Continuous deployment is what people think of automation, okay? But not all businesses are best served with continuous deployment. Continuous delivery also gives you a big competitive advantage, okay? Tests is also automation hunger, let's say, okay? There are many kinds of tests. Please note the peak of the triangle. There are still manual tests. Some of them simply does not justify to automate. Even chaos can be automated. Netflix launched this chaos monkeys. Monkeys are scripts that put your application, your network into chaos and see how they solve the stuff, okay? Okay, start by offering that book. So number 0, 5 seconds. It doesn't matter everything that I've told you. It doesn't matter if you don't look at people. It's people that make you solve all the problems before, especially software developers or software engineers or whatever you want to call it, okay? Call them. There's already some work in artificial intelligence to replace all these software engineers we need. We are not there yet. Heroes. I'm sorry for the Catalan friends. I thought that Josep was not going to be here, but I know that he's online, so sorry, Josep. Heroes. Of course, everyone wants to have heroes in his team or her team, right? But heroes are by definition rare, so they are very expensive, and they usually don't stay on the same place very long, you know? Because they want to be heroes. They want to have, things to solve. And it's great to have them on our team, but we have to take care also of the piano carriers. They are also important. So we have to leverage these people, different people, okay? And people are not interchangeable. Often we think of human resources as the chairs in this room. If you don't like the chair you're sitting on, you just change the chair. People is not like that, okay? Being different has high costs, okay? But please pursue that difference because the world is different. So if we are different, then we will adapt much more easily. And also, let's not pay just in peanuts, okay? If you pay in peanuts, only monkeys will be here, okay? So that's basically it. Key takeaways, it's a summary of the 6 points. I'm way ahead of time or below time. So any questions, please? Thank you.
Any questions for Jose? Or maybe you can approach him at the break. It is now time for the refreshment break, so feel free to come up and talk to Jose, and I'm sure he has some more good stories. So, thanks very much indeed.